Hey, you guys, welcome back, welcome back, welcome back. For those of you that are listening on my YouTube channel, thank you all for being here. Thank you for liking, sharing, and subscribing. For those of you that are listening on Funnel by Design, my podcast, I want to say thank you also for being here and listening. Please, I would encourage you to subscribe, comment, share this information with those that you know are interested in not just starting a nonprofit organization, but really looking to grow one. All right. Um, Today, I want to talk about something that is really important and personal to me. Um, I'm not just trying to change your nonprofit. In my conversations, in my teachings, in my coaching, in my engagement with nonprofit leaders, I'm not just trying to change your nonprofit. I'm really trying to change the entire nonprofit sector. Um, Again, I want to share something that's really deeply personal to me. And this isn't just another lesson about fundraising. It's not another conversation about grants. It's not even another conversation about nonprofit startups. Today, I want to tell you why I do what I do. Over the last several months, something has become incredibly clear to me. I'm not just trying to help individual nonprofit organizations. I'm trying to change how nonprofit leaders are taught to build organization. That's my vision. And I want to explain why. For over 40 years, I've worked with nonprofit organizations in almost every stage imaginable. I've helped organizations secure millions of dollars. I've worked with startups. I've worked with established nonprofit organizations. I've served as an executive. I've written grants. I've raised funds. I've built programs. I've coached leaders. And yet, over these last several years, I keep hearing the same question. Not once, not twice, not 10 times, literally almost every day. A founder, a person who started their nonprofit conversation, would stop in the middle of our discussion and ask, why didn't anyone teach me this before I started? And that question has bothered me. It has stayed with me. It has haunted me because it wasn't coming from one person. It's been coming from hundreds. And eventually I realized that the problem wasn't the individual leader or the person who decided to start their nonprofit. The problem was the education. The education. The nonprofit sector, the nonprofit mechanism of learning has been teaching people how to start, but not how to build. Think about what most people learn when they decide to start a nonprofit organization. They're told, get incorporated, right? Apply for an EIN, write your bylaws, apply for your 501c3 status, recruit a board, open a bank account, apply for grants, launch your program. Do you notice something? Almost everything focuses on how to legally create an organization or how to legally get the status of nonprofit, but very little focus on how do you build one? How do you sustain it? How do you attract donors and funders? How do you grow your team? How do you ensure that the program that you want to launch is able to grow and expand to help more people? That's a huge difference. Filing the paperwork creates a legal entity. That's it. That's it. It just puts your name on a list that shows your organization is now able, capable, qualified to generate tax exempt revenue. That's all it does. It creates a legal trail of how you operate. That's all the paperwork does. It does not create leadership. It does not create governance. It does not create donor confidence. It does not create financial sustainability. It does not create operational systems, strategic directions. It does not create organizational capacity. And now people are confused about formation with construction. You formed it, but it's not built. It's not developed to operate. It's impossible to operate with only the piece of paper, but that is what's being taught. And the cost, that's the part that's got me fired up. That's the part that has me fired up. The cost of this education gap. That when leaders aren't taught how organizations actually work, they do what anyone would do, right? They follow the only roadmap they've been given. They launch the program, they spend their own money, they hope grants will come, they recruit their mother, their brother, their dog, their cat, their fish as board members. They work nights and weekends. They pray, they sacrifice. They keep going until one day they're exhausted. They're exhausted. And then they ask, why isn't this working? It's not because they lack passion. It's because they were never taught organizational development. That's the education gap. Listen, around the world, the story is exactly the same. The story is exactly the same all around the world. I've had conversations with nonprofit leaders from the United States, from Canada, from Kenya, from Uganda, from Nigeria, from Cameroon, from South Africa, from different countries and different cultures, different missions, yet all of them tell me the same version of the same story. We thought funding would come. We thought the grants would come. We thought helping people would be enough. They weren't failing because they didn't care. They were following the only model they had ever been shown. Listen, let me tell you what I've been teaching instead. Let me tell you what I've been teaching. In the nonprofit space, there has become this draw to certain specialists, right? Everybody wants to be a specialist. So you have the grant specialist, you have a board specialist, you have a marketing specialist, you have a finance specialist, you might have a compliance specialist, you have an operations specialist. And every one of these disciplines or these areas are important. They matter. But nonprofit leaders do not need another isolated piece of information. They need someone to help them understand how all the pieces fit together. That's what organizations require: integration, not just information. And I saw this coming back when, for those of you guys who've been following me since Periscope, Periscope is where I saw where everything was going. I I had a gut feeling. I even told a friend of mine, I said, this right here is going to be bad. That is when Twitter came along. That is when IG came along. That is when Facebook Live came along, right? And so everyone is now able to share their specialty. Nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that. But what I noticed is that people were selling their specialty and not the whole piece of the pie. Not the whole piece of pie. They were selling little bits and pieces. I can teach you how to fill out paperwork. I can show you how to write a grant. I can show you fundraising. I can show you about boards. And so you have all these scattered pieces of information, but no one telling people, listen, all of these pieces fit together to look like, to operate as, to function as this. All of those pieces work together. It would be like, I took a fundraising class last year. I took a board development class 2 years ago. I took a grant writing class last week. No, all of those pieces work together to ensure that the organization has the resources, the money, the ability to bring in the revenue to sustain itself, the organization. And this is why I created the capacity framework. It wasn't created because anybody needed another acronym. No, it was created because I wanted a way to teach organizational leaders how organizations actually function. The organization has a function, just like the program has a function. The program function is to meet need, to address the issues, to solve the problem. The program function is to change the people in the program's life. That's the function of the program. The program function is very deliberate and direct in meeting the individual's needs. The other function of the program is to accomplish the mission of the organization. I'm going to say that again. The function of the program is to meet need. The function of the program is to address the circumstances of the people in the program. Jen, I want to give away backpacks. Jen, I want to help single moms. Jen, I want to mentor youth. Those programs have a function. The organization has a function. The function of the organization is compliance, accountability, programs, overseeing the program, right? Advancement, ensuring that the organization is bringing in the revenue, the money, so that that program can continue to function. The program can't function on its own. The program is not independent. It's not separate from, it is under the organization. The organization is first, and then the program oversees. The organization oversees the program. So capacity means compliance, accountability, programs, advancement, the money, communications, the infrastructure to ensure that the organization is operating as it should. And T is team, making sure that you have the people, you have the resource for the people, that they are able to maintain, sustain the program and the operations of the organization. And the Y is the year over year sustainability. Listen, those aren't separate projects. They're one integrated system. All of those things work together. When one is weak, the organization feels it. When they work together, everything is working the way it's supposed to do. The organization becomes trustworthy. The trust attracts the donors, the funders, the supporters, the grant funder, the investment. That's why I say capacity creates funding. Not because funding isn't important, but because funding is rarely the first thing missing. I'm going to say that again. Funding is not the first thing missing. People often ask me, Jen, what are you trying to accomplish? And here's my answer. I'm trying to transform how nonprofit leaders are taught to build organizations. I want the next generation of nonprofit leaders to begin their journey differently. I want them to understand that a nonprofit is more than paperwork. A board is more than a requirement. Fundraising is more than asking for money. Programs are only one part of the organization. The truth is this: leadership is a learned skill. Leadership is a learned skill. Capacity can be built. Sustainability is intentional. I want them to stop believing they have to figure everything out by trial and error. Imagine if every nonprofit leader learned organizational development before launching a program. Imagine if every board member understands governance. Imagine every nonprofit built donor confidence from the beginning. Imagine if the founder wasn't carrying everything alone. Imagine if organizations were designed to outlive the founder. Imagine the communities that could be transformed. That's what I see. Not just more nonprofit organizations, but better built nonprofit organizations. Organizations that don't merely survive, but organizations that strengthen communities for generations. That's my heart. I've been doing this work now for 4 decades. And it breaks my heart that out of 1.8 million nonprofit leaders, 87 are struggling. And what's the result of that? What's the result of so many organizations struggling? And they're not struggling for any other reason other than lack of knowledge, lack of education, lack of understanding when they started, what it took, what it takes to not just fill out the paperwork, but what does it take to run the organization day to day, to build relationships, to show program impact, to resonate and being able to clearly articulate why the mission matters and what's at stake in our communities when these missions aren't accomplished. To be able to build trust, and building trust is what builds the funding. What if everyone knew how important collaboration, partnership, and how that can turn into more capacity for the organization to reach and to help more people? Money is not the problem. Money is not the problem. The problem is the person leading the organization, they don't know how to lead it. Most of them never worked in a nonprofit, never started a nonprofit, never ran a nonprofit. Sure, they're stepping out on passion. Yes, they're stepping out on faith, but they're also making it a lot harder, moving a lot slower. And as a result, because of that lack of knowledge, the people that need their work, the people that deserve a program that is supported by an organization that can sustain that work, they go missing. The organization starts. The person who started it says, Jen, I'm stuck. I don't know how to get unstuck. And as a result, Jen, we had to stop our program. Jen, we started, but we had to quit. We didn't have any money. No, Jen, we don't have a fundraising plan. No, Jen, I don't know how to raise money. No, Jen, I don't know where to start. No, Jen, I don't know what to do first. I just need a grant. Because you were taught that if you were a nonprofit, you can get a grant, but you weren't taught what is it about your organization that resonates and gets and draws the funding. It's not because you have a piece of paper, but you weren't taught that. Now you're down this trail 2 years, 4 years, 6 years, 9 years more. Your program's not growing. The community is not benefited by what you do. Money and time are wasted. And that just, it's sad. But I decided, you know what? I can do something about it. I can do something about it. I've worked in every area of the nonprofit space for over 30 years. I know how nonprofits start. I know how the money is raised. I know how the board is developed. I know the duties of the executive director. I know how organizations sustain themselves. That has been my job. That has been my career in helping organizations nationally and internationally. I'm going to do something about it. And my goal is to teach. My goal is to teach nonprofit leaders how to start with capacity, with knowledge, understanding when they start. What does it mean? What does it take? What does it require? What are the ways for you to generate the funds that you need, the money that you need to keep this thing going? What good does it do to start and then have to stop? To have a program but can't deliver it because you don't know how to raise the money for it. I'm going to do something about it. I'm doing something about it. Listen, if today's conversation resonates with you, if you've ever asked, why didn't anyone teach me this before I started? Why didn't anyone teach me and tell me what I needed to do after I started? I want to invite you to begin a different journey. I want you to start with capacity. I have an organizational assessment for those of you that have started and you find yourself stuck. I want to assess your organization for you. I want to go through and say, these are the areas within your organization that you should prioritize if you want to increase funding and capacity. If you don't know why your organization is stuck, then you don't know how to fix it. If you're not sure why your organization is not attracting donors and not attracting funders, not attracting supporters, then you don't know how to fix that. I want to show you what the problem is. All right. The organizational assessment is free. I'll give it to you. I also have created a fundable nonprofit training series. It's an 8-week series. We right now just completed week number 4, and it's on Wednesdays, every Wednesday. I've got 3 more Wednesdays to go. And I also have a nonprofit fundability report. If you're ready to stop piecing together disconnected advice and begin building your organization with clarity and confidence, I invite you to fill out the readiness assessment. At least you'll know. You'll know why your organization is stuck. You'll know why your organization is not raising money. You'll know why your organization is not able to grow its program, if that's important to you. I invite you to take that. Listen, these are not just programs that I have. They're a part of a different way of thinking about your nonprofit startup, nonprofit leadership. I want to leave you with one final thought. I don't believe that the nonprofit space suffers from lack of compassion. I don't believe it suffers from a shortage of really worthy missions. I don't even believe the nonprofit space suffers for lack of money. I believe it suffers from a shortage of organizational education. Education changes everything. When nonprofit leaders understand how organizations are built, not just started on paper, how they function, the parts of the organization that work together to build trust with community, to develop the money on a regular and consistent basis. When leaders understand how organizations are built, not just started, they stop chasing money and they start building trust. They know how to do that. They stop operating from a place of survival and they start leading with strategy. They stop depending on sacrifice and they begin creating sustainability. This is the legacy I want to leave behind. After 40 years of doing this work, I want my legacy to be, Jen, you taught leaders how not just to start, but to have the capacity, the knowledge, the systems, the tools, the strategies to sustain it. I want organizations that are built to last longer than the person who started it. Not just having an organization that received funding. I want to create a generation of leaders who know how to build organizations worthy of the missions they've been called to serve. Because at the end of the day, it's capacity that creates funding. And when we change how nonprofit leaders are taught, we don't just change organizations. We change communities. We change generations and lives. I'm in this work for the lives that we get to touch, the lives that we get to affect, and the lives that we get to change because of the work that we do. I hope that this information has been helpful. My name is Jennifer. I am more than a fundraiser. I'm more than a grant writer. I'm more than a nonprofit expert. I'm a woman on the mission to educate, particularly people of color, how to not just start, but how do you have the capacity to sustain this important work? Thank you for listening, and I'll see you next time.